No one ever forgets the day when life takes an unexpected turn in front of an entire town. That's what happened to Samantha Lee one sun-bright Saturday in Willow Creek. Every July, families packed the park for Founder's Day, a tradition as old as the weathered barns dotting the fields. By noon, booths overflowed with homemade pie, and laughter bounced off the painted wooden fences. Children darted beneath fluttering banners, while grown-ups swapped stories and squinted against the summer glare. That year, Samantha thought she might finally get a small piece of happiness in the midst of her hard days. The Founder's Day Derby was the centerpiece, a dusty, raucous affair where pride and horses ran neck and neck. The Carter family, old money, new trucks, always sponsored the event, turning it into a showcase for Willow Creek's best. This time, the grandstand bustled with whispers and anticipation. Samantha stood near the edge, her son Eli's small hand wrapped in hers, both of them hoping for something good to break the long run of hard luck that followed them. When the mayor called her name, Samantha felt the world pause. Her heart thudded, and Eli's eyes went wide with delight. She straightened her shoulders, brushed a loose strand of hair behind her ear, and tried to quiet the fluttering in her stomach. Was this finally a moment of recognition? She could almost see herself holding a blue ribbon, making Eli proud, reminding him that even people like them, single mom, short on money, long on struggle, could be seen. She stepped up to the stage, every eye on her, and the sun seemed to shine just a little bit warmer. That's when Dylan Carter, all expensive smiles and shiny boots, sauntered forward with the microphone. "We've got a special honor for someone who's shown real spirit," Dylan announced, dragging out the word. His friends behind him snickered. "Let's hear it for Samantha Lee, the hardest-working mom in Willow Creek, maybe even the kindest." The applause was polite, but something felt off. Samantha glanced at Eli, who was beaming, believing in his mom. Dylan gestured dramatically, and from behind the curtain came a handler leading a horse. A mare, trembling and thin, her coat dull, her eyes cloudy and scared. The animal looked like she might collapse any minute. Dylan grinned, pretending not to see the snickers rippling through the crowd. "We're gifting this beautiful mare whisper to Samantha and her boy," Dylan declared. "May she bring you luck and a little company." Laughter erupted from the Carter side of the crowd. Whispers started. Samantha felt her cheeks burn. Samantha realized at once what was happening. Dylan wasn't honoring her. He was humiliating her. Whisper wasn't a prize. She was a cast-off, a joke at Samantha's expense, a reminder that the Carter family could give and take as they pleased. The mare's legs wobbled as if she'd barely made it this far. The urge to lash out burned inside Samantha. For one wild second, she wanted to throw the halter back in Dylan's face, storm off, shout, "No, not like this." But then she looked at Eli. His little face glowed, eyes fixed on Whisper, not understanding the joke. Not yet. She saw her own reflection in his hope. Samantha knelt beside Eli, taking his hands. "What do you think?" she asked, her voice low, steady. Eli nodded, his words trembling with excitement. "She's ours, Mom. She's really ours." Samantha turned back to the crowd, standing tall, her chin high. "Thank you, Dylan," she said, every word clear and measured. "We'll take good care of her." She looked into the mare's frightened eyes and felt a surge of determination. No one would teach her son to be ashamed of kindness. Not today. A hush fell over the crowd. For a moment, even Dylan looked uneasy. Samantha reached for the lead rope, ignoring the pitying stares, the barely hidden laughter, the whispered words. Pathetic, poor Samantha. Always the charity case. She led Whisper down from the stage, Eli beside her, his tiny hand stroking the horse's trembling side. The day pressed on around them, but something had shifted. As she walked, Samantha heard a sharp voice from the Carter group, one of Dylan's friends, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Guess she'll fit right in. One lame horse for another." Laughter rippled out again. Samantha stopped, the old anger rising, then fading just as quickly. She pressed Eli's hand, reminding herself, dignity over anger. Always. Whisper stumbled, nearly falling, but Eli caught her, arms flung wide, his own small body bracing against the horse's side. "It's okay, girl," he whispered. "You're safe with us." Samantha swallowed, blinking back a sting in her eyes. The humiliation was sharp, but she wouldn't let it win. She turned her face to the breeze, feeling a strange sense of calm. They'd walked through harder things before, just the two of them. Now maybe they'd walk through this with Whisper too. The sun began to dip, casting long shadows over the fairgrounds. A few onlookers, uncomfortable now, glanced away. Others watched, some with pity, some with curiosity, a few maybe even with respect. Samantha ignored them all, focused on getting Whisper home. She could hear Eli humming under his breath, a quiet promise that they'd make this work. At the edge of the field, Samantha paused and looked back. Dylan Carter stood on the steps, arms folded, mouth twisted in a satisfied smirk. She stared at him for a long moment, then turned away, refusing to let him have the last word. As they walked, Eli skipped ahead, clutching Whisper's rope. "She's going to get better, Mom. You'll see." Samantha smiled, hope flickering. Maybe this was the start of something after all. Maybe humiliation could bloom into something beautiful if you just refused to let go. They left the laughter and stares behind, heading down the long dirt road toward home. 3 shadows stretched out in the fading light. Mother, son, and the horse no one else wanted. And that, Samantha thought, is how you begin again. Whisper's halting steps echoed through Samantha's mind long after they left the fairgrounds behind. The afternoon sun slid behind the old sycamore trees as she and Eli made their slow journey home, the little mare trembling beside them. Eli talked non-stop, excitement bubbling out as if he hadn't noticed the jeers or the weight of what had just happened. "I'm going to teach her tricks, Mom. Maybe she can even run next year." Eli's voice trailed off when he saw the worry lining his mother's face. Samantha tried to smile. "One day at a time, honey, okay? Let's just get her settled." Their small rented plot sat at the edge of Willow Creek, with a wire fence, a patchy yard, and a ramshackle shed they'd fixed up for animals. Neighbors watched from behind curtains as they led Whisper through the gate, some with smirks, a few with narrowed eyes. Nobody offering to help. Samantha's old pickup, held together by faith and rust, looked almost grand next to their new arrival. She could already feel the town's eyes on her, a fresh round of gossip rising like heat off the summer road. She heard it in the way Mrs. Potts, 2 houses down, called her daughter to the porch, her voice sharp. "Come inside now, leave them be." She saw it in the way Mr. Rankin, who usually nodded when she walked by, just stared and shook his head. It felt like the whole world was waiting for her to stumble. Samantha ignored them, focusing on Whisper. The mare balked at the gate, nostrils flaring, eyes wide. Eli ran ahead, pushing open the makeshift stable door. "See, she's home," Eli waved, his grin fierce in the fading light. Samantha coaxed Whisper forward, whispering gently, "Come on, girl. It's not much, but it's safe." The mare hesitated, then took a shaky step, drawn by Eli's calm assurance. Together they guided her inside, spreading hay over the dirt and filling an old bucket with water. Night settled thick and heavy. Samantha stood with Eli watching Whisper eat, each movement careful, almost reverent. A new anxiety grew in Samantha's chest, a heavy, gnawing sense that Dylan Carter wasn't finished with his games. Sure enough, the next morning brought more trouble. It started with a knock at the door. Samantha wiped her hands on her jeans and opened it to find Dylan standing on the stoop, sunglasses perched on his head, a smug smile on his lips. A shiny black truck idled at the curb. He held out an envelope. "Morning, Samantha. Thought you might want to reconsider that little prize of yours. My dad says we'll take Whisper back, plus a little cash for your trouble." Eli appeared at his mother's side, barefoot and defiant. "We don't want your money. Whisper's staying with us, right, Mom?" Dylan's smile flickered, but he leaned against the doorframe, lowering his voice. "I'm doing you a favor. That horse is worthless. She'll be more trouble than you know. Why not just let her go? No one would blame you." Samantha felt the anger rising, fierce and bright. But she kept her voice calm, even as she gripped the doorknob. "You made your joke, Dylan. We're done here. Please leave." He shrugged, dropped the envelope on the porch, and walked away. Eli kicked the door shut, his face red. "Why are they so mean, Mom? Why do they hate us?" Samantha crouched down, looking into his eyes. "They don't hate us, baby. They just don't know us. Sometimes people laugh at things they're afraid to try themselves." Eli nodded, fighting tears. "We're not giving up on her." Samantha smiled, hugging him tight. Never. But the town didn't let it go. By noon, Samantha could feel the gossip thickening. At the feed store, Mrs. Harper raised her eyebrows. "Heard you took in that old nag. Brave, I suppose." At church, someone slipped an anonymous note into her purse. "Maybe you should focus on your boy, not charity cases." Even her friend Grace called that evening, voice wavering with concern. "Sam, I'm proud of you, but you know they're watching. If you need help, let me know. People can be cruel." Samantha thanked her and tried to push the doubt aside, but it crept in, whispering all night. Things got worse that evening. As Samantha tucked Eli into bed, Whisper's whinny pierced the quiet. Samantha hurried outside, heart thudding. She found the mare trembling, legs splayed, sweat soaking her coat. For a moment, Whisper swayed, then collapsed onto the straw. Eli rushed outside in pajamas, his face pale. "Is she dying? Mom, please, don't let her die." Samantha knelt beside the mare, panic clawing at her. She stroked Whisper's neck, murmuring comfort, but the horse's breathing was shallow and ragged. Samantha felt helpless, all her strength useless now. She glanced at Eli, saw the fear in his eyes, and forced herself to act. She ran for the old phone, dialing Grace. "Whisper's down. I don't know what to do." Grace promised to come, but all Samantha could do was sit in the straw, holding Eli close, whispering prayers she hadn't said in years. Eli pressed his cheek to Whisper's side. "Don't give up, Mom. Please. Don't let them win." Samantha looked at her son, his face streaked with tears, and felt something break open inside her. Not fear, not anger, something deeper, a fierce resolve, a promise to herself and to Eli that she would not let them be beaten down by cruelty or shame. She squeezed his hand. "We're not giving up. Not on her. Not on us. I promise." Outside, the night air buzzed with summer insects, the world pressing close. Samantha kept her vigil, Eli's small hand in hers, as Whisper's breathing steadied. Just a little, in the darkness. And for the first time, Samantha realized the real test wasn't surviving humiliation. It was standing firm in the face of it, and teaching her son to do the same. The first battle was over, but the real fight for Whisper and for their dignity had only just begun. Morning broke with a soft pink glow over Willow Creek, but for Samantha and Eli, It felt more like a fragile hope than a promise. Samantha had barely slept, her mind running circles around Whisper's collapse, every shallow breath echoing her own fears. Yet when she stepped outside with a mug of weak coffee, she found the little mare still alive, curled in the straw, eyes tracking her movement. Eli was already there, crouched beside Whisper with a battered storybook in his lap. "I read to her all night, Mom. I think she likes my voice." Samantha managed to smile, crouching next to them. "I'm sure it helps, Eli. Horses know when someone cares about them." "You're doing good." He looked up, his face hopeful, then stroked Whisper's muzzle. The mare's ears flickered, her sides rising and falling in an uneven rhythm. She was still so thin Samantha could see every rib, every twitch of muscle beneath the skin. But there was a spark in Whisper's eyes, something that hadn't been there before. They started small, hour by hour, day by day. Samantha knew she couldn't fix everything at once, neither the pain in Whisper's body nor the ache in her own heart. She took Grace's advice and called her best friend over. Grace arrived with her arms full of herbal remedies and a determination that matched Samantha's. "Got some comfrey for poultices and chamomile for calm," Grace said, rolling up her sleeves. "Let's see if country medicine can work miracles." The two women set about their work, washing Whisper's wounds, checking her hooves, rubbing ointments into sore muscles. The mare flinched at first, her body tense, but Grace hummed old lullabies and Eli read his stories, weaving a little web of peace around the frightened animal. Slowly, Whisper's shaking eased, her eyes half closing as she surrendered to the gentle touch. Days slipped by in this rhythm: work, care, hope, and patience. Eli took on the role of nurse and friend, always at Whisper's side. He'd sing to her softly, or recount stories of brave knights and loyal steeds, his voice a balm in the quiet barn. Sometimes Samantha would catch him talking about his dreams, confiding in the mare as if she were a person. "Maybe we could ride together one day, just us. What do you think, Whisper?" Sometimes Whisper would nuzzle his shoulder in answer. Other times she just lay still, breathing in the sound of a child's faith. The town's whispers drifted in from the edges, but Samantha learned to tune them out. Whenever she went to town, heads turned, conversations paused. A few people were openly dismissive, shaking their heads at her stubbornness. But others looked away, maybe feeling something she couldn't quite name: guilt, or maybe just confusion at her refusal to quit. Only Grace stood by her, showing up every evening with fresh bandages or a casserole, bringing warmth and laughter back into Samantha's battered world. The hardest nights were the ones when nothing seemed to change. Whisper would stand shivering, refusing to eat, her legs trembling with every step. Samantha's doubts crept in. Had Dylan been right? Was she really just stubborn, dragging her son and this horse through suffering for nothing? But then Eli would burst into the barn with a joke or a drawing, and Whisper's ears would perk up, her nose searching out the apple slice hidden in his pocket. One afternoon, as rain pattered on the tin roof, Eli lay in the straw with Whisper, both of them listening to the storm. Samantha watched from the doorway, arms crossed, fear twisting in her stomach. "What if we can't fix her?" she whispered to Grace, her voice tight. Grace shrugged, her eyes soft. "Then at least she'll know love, Sam. And Eli'll know you tried." Eli looked up then, grinning. "She's not giving up, Mom. She just needs time." That night, as thunder rolled over Willow Creek, Samantha stayed in the barn long after Eli fell asleep. She stroked Whisper's mane, letting the rhythm calm her. The horse leaned into her touch, letting out a long, weary sigh. Days turned into weeks. Whisper's wounds closed. Her coat, once rough and patchy, grew smoother, catching the light in ways Samantha hadn't noticed before. She still limped, still struggled with each step, but her eyes grew brighter, following Eli whenever he darted across the paddock. It wasn't just physical healing. Something deeper was changing. The more time Samantha spent with Whisper, the more she felt her own defenses crumbling. The shame and anger that had plagued her since the derby began to fade, replaced by a fierce pride. Not in winning, but in refusing to surrender. In showing Eli that worth wasn't something a rich boy could hand out or take away. The real shift came one cool evening when Eli was feeding Whisper carrot tops and whispering nonsense. Samantha watched as the mare nuzzled Eli's palm, then took a slow, careful step toward her. Samantha held out her hand, palm open, and Whisper lowered her head, breathing in her scent. Samantha smiled, feeling tears prick her eyes. "Hey there, pretty girl. You're safe. You're home." Whisper snorted softly, nudging her arm, and for the first time since the derby, Samantha laughed. A real, unguarded laugh, sharp and sweet. Eli whooped, dancing around the barn. "See? She likes you, Mom. I knew she would." From that day on, things shifted in the Lee house. Samantha stopped flinching at every knock or sideways glance. Grace and Eli started calling Whisper the bravest horse in Willow Creek. And even Samantha found herself believing it. Just a little more each day. They still had miles to go, but for the first time, hope settled over their home like the dawn. A quiet, stubborn hope, born not from triumph, but from a steady, ordinary love. And in the hush of each evening, as Eli drifted to sleep and Whisper rested her head beside the boy's blanket, Samantha realized they were healing together, woman, child, and horse, each giving the others a reason to believe that maybe, just maybe, miracles were made of patience, kindness, and never giving up. Just as it seemed that hope was finally taking root in the Lee household, fate tested Samantha's resolve once more. By the start of the third week, Whisper was standing more often, even venturing a few shaky steps in the paddock while Eli cheered her on. The three of them, Samantha, Eli, and Grace, had settled into a new routine of chores and gentle healing, each small improvement celebrated like a miracle. For the first time in ages, Samantha found herself smiling as she made breakfast, humming as she swept the kitchen floor. But the real world had a way of reminding Samantha that progress could be fragile. One morning, as dew glistened on the grass, she stepped out to find Whisper lying down again, her breaths shallow, sides heaving. Panic jolted through Samantha. She knelt beside the mare, hands trembling. Grace rushed over at the sound of Samantha's call, her face drawn with worry. "Is it bad?" Grace asked, kneeling in the straw. Samantha pressed her palm against Whisper's neck, feeling for fever. "She's burning up. I don't know what else to do." Eli hovered at the doorway, tears gathering in his eyes. "Did I do something wrong? Mom, is she gonna die?" Samantha pulled him close, shaking her head. "No, sweetheart. You did everything right. She's just sick, that's all." Grace frowned, thinking hard. "Wait here. I'll call Uncle Luis. He might know something." Grace's uncle, Doc Mendez, was a retired veterinarian with a gentle smile and hands as steady as stone. He arrived within the hour, shuffling up the drive with a battered black bag, his brown eyes sharp as he surveyed the scene. "Well, well," he murmured, crouching by Whisper. "You've got a fighter here. But she's in trouble." He ran his hands along the mare's side, checking her legs, her gums, her eyes. "She needs medicine, and fast. But more than that, she needs you to believe she can make it. Samantha bit her lip. But we've tried everything. Oats, poultices, rest. It's not enough. Doc Mendez looked at her, his gaze calm and steady. Sometimes animals get worse before they get better. You have to keep showing up, even when it hurts to hope. Grace squeezed Samantha's shoulder, nodding. He's right, Sam. You got her this far. Don't let go now. Doc rummaged in his bag, mixing a paste of herbs and old horse medicine. He showed Samantha how to rub it into Whisper's gums, how to cool her fever with wet rags, how to massage her legs to ease the cramping. You're gonna have to sit with her tonight, he warned, glancing at the sky. She'll feel the fight in you. You'd be surprised how much that matters. As the sun fell, casting long golden bars across the little barn, Samantha settled down next to Whisper. Eli curled at her side, Grace bringing tea and words of comfort. All night, Samantha stroked the mare's mane, whispering encouragement, fighting back the terror that clawed at her heart. Please don't leave us, she breathed. You're not alone. Not anymore. Outside, the town moved on as always. Lights flicked on in kitchen windows. Radios played old country songs. Cars rumbled by without slowing. But in the Lee barn, time seemed to pause, suspended on the fragile thread of hope that tied woman, child, and horse together. By dawn, Whisper was still alive. Her breathing was rough, but steady. Samantha wept with relief, her arms wrapped around Eli, who slept pressed against the mare's side. News of Whisper's struggle trickled through the town. Samantha noticed little changes. A neighbor left a bundle of alfalfa hay at the gate, wrapped in brown paper. An anonymous envelope appeared in the mailbox, containing a handful of feed store coupons and a note that read, "Keep going, we're rooting for you." For the first time since the Derby, Samantha sensed that not everyone wanted her to fail. Grace grinned when she saw the gifts. Looks like someone's paying attention after all. Even so, not everyone was so kind. A group of teenagers from school rode by on their bikes one afternoon, laughing as they tossed an apple core over the fence. "Hope your miracle horses can walk straight someday," they jeered, racing away before Samantha could respond. Samantha's cheeks flushed, but she refused to let anger take root. Instead, she focused on the helpers, the silent hands who left carrots at the gate, the old men at the feed store who started nodding when she walked by, the quiet smiles that met her eyes at church. Doc Mendez became a regular presence at their little farm. He brought old horse books, stories from his long career, and a stubborn belief that every creature deserved a second chance. She reminds me of another mare I once knew, kicked by everyone, but ended up saving a whole herd from a fire. You never know what someone's capable of until you stick by them when it's darkest. Samantha listened, letting his words settle deep inside. The community's slow, subtle kindness began to wrap around her and Eli, changing the shape of their days. She caught herself humming again, hope blossoming despite the setbacks. One chilly morning, Eli darted into the kitchen, face shining. "Mom, she's up! She walked all the way to the fence by herself!" Samantha rushed out, tears prickling her eyes as she saw Whisper, standing on her own, coat glinting in the pale sunlight. The mare's head lifted at Samantha's approach, and for the first time, Samantha felt sure they were turning a corner. "We're not alone anymore," she murmured, wrapping her arms around Eli, their laughter mingling with the morning breeze. The quiet healing had become something bigger, an invitation for others to hope too. Even in a small, judgmental town, compassion was beginning to grow. And in the center of it all, Samantha, Eli, and Whisper were learning that sometimes The bravest thing you can do is trust the kindness of strangers and let the broken pieces knit together into something new. The days ahead were still uncertain, but for the first time, Samantha felt she could meet them with her head held high, ready for whatever came next. Bills piled up on the kitchen table, each envelope a reminder that hope didn't pay for hay or overdue electricity. As summer crept by, the Lee household walked a tightrope of belief and anxiety. Whisper was getting stronger. She even trotted one morning, sending Eli into a fit of laughter and proud cheers. But every victory seemed matched by a new setback. Samantha found herself counting coins at the grocery store, holding her breath each time she swiped her battered debit card. The past weeks had carved lines of worry into her face, even as her resolve grew stronger. Late one afternoon, as Samantha hauled a sack of feed from the truck, she heard the crunch of tires on gravel. A familiar, unwelcome rumble made her shoulders tense. Dylan Carter's black pickup stopped at the edge of the yard, dust curling around the chrome wheels. Dylan hopped out, sunglasses glinting, his smile cold as ice. He strode up the walk, holding a fat white envelope. "Heard the horse is still alive. Impressive. Listen, I'll double my offer. 2,000 cash. You can buy your kid something nice. Maybe even move out of this dump. All you gotta do is hand over the reins." Samantha felt heat rise up her neck. "Not interested. She's not for sale, Dylan," he laughed, loud enough for neighbors to hear. "Don't be stubborn, Samantha. You're making this harder than it needs to be. That animal's a lost cause. What are you trying to prove?" She cut him off, voice low and steady. "I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm showing my son that we don't walk away from what matters." Dylan's face darkened. "You think this is teaching him something good? What happens when you can't feed him or the lights go out? Is that the lesson?" Eli appeared at the door, watching, shoulders squared. Dylan lowered his voice, menace curling at the edges. "Don't let pride ruin you. Just take the money. Everyone will understand." For a moment, Samantha's confidence faltered. The bills, the sideways glances in town, the pressure to just give up. It all pressed down like a weight on her chest. What if he was right? Was her pride worth risking everything for a horse nobody believed in? She glanced at the envelope, fat with cash, and saw all the things it could buy. A working fridge, a dentist visit for Eli, maybe even a real birthday party. But then she saw Eli's eyes, wide with worry and something else. Faith. He believed in her. He believed in Whisper. Samantha remembered the first day they brought the mare home. How Eli had stood up to Dylan with nothing but his love and stubborn hope. She straightened her shoulders. "No deal, Dylan. She stays with us." He scoffed, flicking the envelope onto the porch. "You're a fool." He stalked back to his truck, slamming the door. The engine roared as he sped off, dust swirling behind him. Samantha stood frozen, the silence heavy. Eli came outside, picking up the envelope and handing it to her. "Are we going to be okay, Mom?" She knelt, brushing a hand over his cheek. "We're going to be okay. Sometimes the hardest thing is sticking with what you believe in, even when everyone else calls you crazy." That night, after Eli went to bed, Samantha sat at the table, the envelope staring up at her. She turned it over and over, imagining all the ways life could be easier. She didn't sleep, caught between fear and hope, replaying Dylan's words. Was she really just being stubborn? Was it fair to drag Eli through this, just to prove a point to people who didn't care about them? In the morning, she called Grace, her voice raw. "I almost said yes, Gracie. I almost gave up." Grace didn't hesitate. That's not weakness, Sam. That's being human. But you didn't do it. You chose what's right for you and for Eli. I'm proud of you. And I've got your back, always. Samantha let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Grace's words settled her. Still, doubt lingered. A few days later, Samantha drove Eli into town for groceries. As she walked the aisles, heads turned, some with curiosity, others with scorn. A pair of women at the bakery counter whispered. Then one called out, "How's the charity case? Bet it's a lot of work for nothing." Samantha gripped the cart, fighting the urge to snap back. Eli looked up at her, his little face brave. On the way home, the old truck sputtered and nearly died at the edge of the property. Samantha coaxed it along, jaw clenched. When they finally made it to the barn, Whisper greeted them at the fence, ears perked, as if sensing their mood. Eli ran to her, wrapping his arms around the mare's neck. "It's okay, girl. We're not going anywhere." Samantha leaned against the truck, letting the cool metal steady her. She watched as Eli led Whisper in slow circles around the paddock, his voice rising in laughter. Something shifted inside her. She realized that every sacrifice, every moment of doubt, was worth it for this. For Eli's hope. For Whisper's gentle trust. Grace arrived later that evening, carrying fresh apples and a bag of flour. "You look tired," she said, squeezing Samantha's hand. Samantha nodded. "I'm scared, Grace, but I'm not giving up." Grace smiled, her eyes fierce. "You don't have to do this alone. We'll figure it out together. Just keep trusting yourself and Whisper." That night, Samantha sat in the barn under the glow of a single bulb, Whisper nuzzling her shoulder. She let herself believe, just for a moment, that things could get better, that miracles could happen for people like them. Outside, the world kept spinning, indifferent to their struggle. But inside the little barn, faith was quietly winning over fear, one day at a time. And Samantha, holding her son and her stubborn hope close, knew she had chosen the only path that mattered. As July slipped into August, the heat pressed down on Willow Creek, curling the leaves and turning the gravel roads to dust. In the long evenings, Samantha found herself looking forward to the cool hush that settled over her little property after sunset. It was then, under the gentle watch of the moon, that hope quietly came alive. That was when the real work began. Whisper's strength grew, but she was still a far cry from the robust mares Samantha remembered seeing at the Carter Ranch. Her limp was stubborn, her gait uneven, but determination shone in her eyes. Samantha saw it most clearly at night, when the world shrank to the small circle of light spilling from the barn door and the sound of Eli's laughter echoed across the yard. One night, as the cicadas buzzed and fireflies blinked in the grass, Samantha led Whisper out for a walk around the paddock. Eli followed, flashlight in hand, playing the part of coach and cheerleader. "You can do it, girl. Just a little farther tonight." Whisper stepped forward, ears twitching at every sound, but she didn't hesitate the way she once did. Samantha stroked her neck, marveling at the way the horse had started to trust her. Really trust her. Each time Whisper completed a lap, Eli would clap and jump, his faith infectious. After one slow, steady loop, Whisper paused, sides heaving, but her head was high. Samantha knelt, brushing Eli's hair back. "She's getting stronger because you believe in her, bud. You know that?" Eli grinned, then glanced toward the house. "Can we try again tomorrow?" "Every night," Samantha promised. That became their ritual. By day, Samantha worked extra hours for a local seamstress, sewing curtains and patching jeans. Her hands aching, but her heart lighter. By night, she and Eli trained Whisper under the stars, each lap a small miracle. One Friday evening, Grace showed up with Doc Mendez in tow and a fresh batch of oatmeal cookies. "Heard there's a moonlight derby happening out here," Doc teased, his eyes crinkling. Samantha smiled, grateful for the company. "We're just hoping she's ready for the fall fair. No promises." Doc nodded, watching Whisper intently as she limped through another lap. "Don't worry about the fair just yet. Focus on the journey, not the finish line." Eli grinned, waving a cookie like a victory flag. "She finished 3 laps tonight. That's more than ever." Word of their progress began to spread. Quietly at first, just whispers at the grocery store or a passing comment at the post office. One day, Samantha found a brown envelope tucked inside her mailbox. Inside was a clipping from the Willow Creek Gazette, a tiny column titled, "Against the Odds, Local Family and Horse-Inspire Town." The article told their story in plain words, but reading it brought tears to Samantha's eyes. Someone cared. Someone noticed. Not long after, letters started arriving. At first just 1 or 2. Sloppy handwriting, simple messages. "You're stronger than you think. We're cheering for you. Don't let them win." Some included gift cards for the feed store. Others held drawings from children, crayon pictures of a woman, a boy, and a spotted horse, all smiling in a sunlit field. Even Doc Mendez seemed changed by the little community that was growing up around them. He visited more often, sharing stories from his years as a vet, his face alight with memory. "Lost causes," he'd say, "are just miracles waiting for someone brave enough to believe." Some nights, after the training was done and Eli was asleep, Samantha would sit by Whisper's stall, listening to the sound of the horse's slow breathing. She felt the walls of her old life, the shame, the poverty, the constant feeling of being less than, slowly crumbling. In their place grew a stubborn hope. Not for easy answers, but for real, hard-earned change. Still, there were setbacks. Whisper stumbled badly during a practice run, and Samantha's heart nearly stopped. She rushed to the mare's side, fear tightening her chest. But Whisper only nudged her hand, as if to say, "I'm not giving up yet." That night, Samantha cried quietly in the kitchen, afraid that maybe they were asking too much. She called Grace, her voice shaking. "What if we're hurting her? What if I'm just making it worse?" Grace came over, wrapping her in a fierce hug. "You're not. She wants to fight. You're giving her a chance. That's all any of us can do." Days blurred into weeks. The first crisp hint of autumn was in the air, and with it, the fairgrounds began to buzz. Posters for the upcoming Willow Creek Fall Derby popped up all over town. Eli brought one home from school, his eyes alight. "We should enter, Mom. Whisper's ready. I know she is." Samantha hesitated, looking at the poster, then at her son's hopeful face. Could they really do it? Was Whisper strong enough? Was she? Doc Mendez dropped by that evening. He listened to Samantha's doubts, then shook his head. "You don't have to win. You just have to try. Let her show you what she can do." That night, after Eli had gone to bed, Samantha led Whisper outside. Under the silver light of the moon, she pressed her cheek to the mare's warm neck. "We're gonna try, girl. We're gonna show them." And as the crickets sang and the wind whispered through the trees, Samantha felt something she hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not in what they'd accomplished, but in the courage it took to keep going. Whisper nickered softly, nudging Samantha's shoulder. Tomorrow, they'd run again. And maybe, just maybe, the whole town would finally see what Samantha and Eli already knew. That miracles could grow in even the most unlikely places. And that the heart of Willow Creek was beating strong, right there in their little barn. Derby Day dawned with a restless, electric energy. The Willow Creek Fairgrounds hummed with excitement. Bright tents lined the old racecourse, and the smell of popcorn and grilling sausages floated through the morning air. Samantha stood by the barn, her hands shaking as she braided Whisper's mane. The mare's coat, once dull and patchy, now gleamed in the sunlight. And though she still moved with a slight limp, there was a strength in her step that made Samantha's heart leap. Eli darted around, pinning his number to his shirt, talking a mile a minute. "Do you think she's nervous?" "I think she's excited. She likes crowds, right, Mom? What if she gets scared?" Samantha smiled, fighting her own nerves. "She'll be okay. She trusts us. And I trust you, Bud." All morning people trickled in, filling the bleachers. Samantha caught snatches of conversation, curiosity, skepticism, the edge of something like hope. She spotted Grace waving from the crowd, her smile fierce, and Doc Mendez by her side, arms folded, watching the preparations with a quiet intensity. The Carters, as always, held court near the starting line. Dylan, dressed in new boots and a crisp blue shirt, leaned against the fence, arms crossed, surrounded by friends. He watched Samantha lead Whisper out with a smirk, but his eyes lingered a little longer than before. A hush fell over the field as the announcer's voice rang out, calling the riders forward. Samantha's stomach twisted. She knelt beside Whisper, smoothing the mare's forelock, and whispered, "We made it this far. Let's just finish the race. That's all we have to do." Eli squeezed her hand. "We'll do it together, Mom." Samantha mounted, feeling Whisper tremble beneath her. The other riders, most on glossy, powerful horses, glanced over, some with sympathy, a few with barely concealed amusement. One woman, her voice too loud, whispered to her companion, "I hope that little mare makes it halfway." Samantha straightened, letting the words slide off. The starting pistol cracked, sharp and sudden. They were off. The crowd roared as the riders surged forward. Whisper hesitated, ears flat, thrown by the noise and chaos. For a terrible moment she balked, hooves skittering on the packed earth. Samantha's heart dropped. "No, not now." Then Eli's voice rose from the sidelines, clear and unwavering. "You can do it, Whisper. We believe in you." Whisper's ears flicked. Samantha leaned forward, her hands gentle. "Come on, girl. Just like at home. One step at a time." Slowly, Whisper found her rhythm, picking up speed. They trailed at the back, dust in their faces. But Samantha didn't care. Every stride was a victory. She heard jeers from the Carter group, but further down the fence a few people cheered. Grace, Doc, even Mrs. Harper from the feed store, waving a handkerchief. Halfway through, disaster struck. A rider ahead cut sharply, spooking Whisper. The little mare stumbled, nearly falling. Samantha braced herself. "Please, get up. Don't let it end here." Eli's voice broke through the panic. "Get up, Whisper! You're not alone!" With a shudder, Whisper scrambled back to her feet, trembling but upright. Samantha steadied her, heart pounding, then urged her on. They were a full lap behind now, but as they passed the main stretch, the crowd began to shift. Cheers mingled with the laughter. Even the skeptics found themselves caught up, shouting encouragement as Whisper struggled on. The final lap felt endless. Samantha's legs ached, her throat raw from shouting encouragement. Whisper slowed, head low, but her stride didn't break. Eli ran the fence line, arms pumping. "Don't quit, Whisper. You're almost there." The leading horses thundered past the finish, their riders raising arms in triumph. The crowd's attention shifted, but Samantha kept going, unwilling to quit. Whisper's sides heaved, sweat darkening her coat. But the mare kept moving, refusing to stop. With every step, the energy around the track changed. Grace started a slow clap, soon joined by others, until the stands echoed with applause. Even Dylan looked up, his smirk fading as he watched Whisper fight for every inch. Samantha blinked away tears, her voice shaking. "You did it, girl. Just a little more." They crossed the finish line, last by a mile, but the crowd rose in a roar. Eli burst from the sidelines, racing across the dirt, throwing his arms around Whisper's neck. "You did it! You finished! I knew you could!" For a moment, time seemed to pause. Samantha slid from the saddle, falling to her knees in the dust, Whisper's breath hot on her cheek. All around them, people cheered, not for the fastest, but for the bravest. A reporter shoved a microphone forward, asking breathless questions. Samantha just shook her head, laughing and crying at once. Dylan approached, his face unreadable. He looked at Samantha, then at Whisper, then back. After a pause, he offered his hand. "You proved me wrong. She's got more heart than any horse out here, and you've got more guts than anyone I know." Samantha took his hand, surprise softening her features. "Thank you, Dylan." He looked out at the crowd. "We could use someone like you. There's a new project at the Carter Ranch. Riding therapy, maybe a rescue program. Interested?" Samantha stared, stunned. "Are you serious?" He nodded. "You showed the whole town what it means to believe in a second chance." All around them, faces once cold now shone with pride. Eli grinned. Whisper nuzzled Samantha's shoulder. And for the first time since that cruel Derby day, Samantha felt the weight of shame and doubt lift. That night, as the sun dipped below the fairgrounds and the crowd drifted home, Samantha stood by Whisper's stall, Eli asleep in her arms. The little mare munched quietly on hay, her eyes gentle and tired. Samantha pressed a kiss to Eli's brow, whispering, "We did it. You, me, and her. We did it." And outside, the town of Willow Creek buzzed with a new story, one about hope, grit, and the kind of victory that could never be measured by speed or silver, but only by the size of a heart that refused to quit. The energy from the Derby seemed to ripple through Willow Creek long after the dust settled. Everywhere Samantha went, corner store, school pickup line, church, people stopped to talk, smiles blooming where there had once been pity or suspicion. For the first time in years, she felt the town see her not as a charity case, but as someone to admire. Whisper's last place finish had become the story of the season, retold in diners, at playgrounds, and over Sunday dinner tables. One evening, Grace came by with a casserole and a stack of local newspapers, her eyes shining. "Your front page, Sam. And look at this." She laid out a photograph. Samantha, arms around Eli, Whisper standing strong beside them at the Derby finish line, confetti drifting like rain. Above the photo, the headline read, "Against the odds, local family and horse inspire town." Samantha stared at the image, a lump in her throat. "I never wanted fame. I just wanted her to have a chance." Grace squeezed her hand. "Sometimes, giving someone a chance is the most radical thing you can do." A few days later, Samantha received an unexpected visitor. Dylan Carter pulled up in his truck, not in his usual swagger, but with a hesitant look, as if unsure he belonged on their humble property. He stepped out, holding a thick folder and a set of keys. "Got a minute?" he asked, glancing at Whisper grazing in the sun. Samantha nodded, nerves fluttering. Dylan walked the fence line with her, shoulders hunched. "I was wrong about a lot of things," he said, voice softer than she'd ever heard. "I was raised to think winning was everything. But that day, Watching Whisper cross the finish line, I realized I've been missing the whole point. He handed her the folder. We're opening a new riding center at the Carter Ranch. It's for kids, for veterans, for anyone who needs a fresh start. Mom's calling it Whisper Haven. I want you to help run it. With Grace, with Doc Mendez, and with anyone else who believes in second chances. Samantha's breath caught. You really mean it? Dylan nodded, his face earnest. You taught me something I should have learned a long time ago, and I want to do something right for once. Eli came running up, Whisper following with her awkward but determined trot. Did he bring carrots, Mom? Dylan laughed, a sound more genuine than Samantha had ever heard. I'll bring a whole bag next time, promise. He knelt beside Eli, looking him in the eye. Your mom's the bravest person I know, kid. Eli puffed up, proud. She's my hero. Word of the new project spread quickly. Soon, neighbors who'd once snickered showed up at the ranch, sleeves rolled, ready to volunteer. Grace took charge of the gardens. Doc Mendez managed the medical care for the horses. And Samantha oversaw every detail, choosing rescued horses, planning outreach, welcoming kids who needed a place to belong. Whisper became the heart of it all. The little mare, once a symbol of mockery, now welcomed children with gentle eyes and nuzzled nervous hands. She walked with wounded veterans, their scars hidden but not forgotten, her calm presence drawing smiles from the most hardened faces. On opening day, the Carter Ranch buzzed with energy. Tables groaned with food, kids dashed between pastures, and even the most skeptical townsfolk came to see what all the fuss was about. Samantha gave a short speech, her voice trembling. I don't have fancy words, she said, but I know what it's like to feel unwanted, to wonder if you'll ever belong. Whisper taught me that every living thing deserves a second chance. And together, I think we can make this a place where nobody has to feel alone. Thunderous applause followed, with Dylan clapping loudest. The crowd mingled, strangers becoming friends, united by a new sense of purpose. Even Mrs. Potts, who once watched from her porch with a frown, came forward to donate blankets and old horse tack. As days passed, the ranch transformed. Where once there was silence, now there was laughter. Where once suspicion ruled, now trust grew. Samantha watched, amazed, as teenagers who had once thrown taunts learned to muck stalls, brush horses, and slowly open their hearts. One afternoon, as the sun set golden over the pastures, Samantha found Dylan fixing a fence. He straightened, sweat streaking his brow. I'm not great at saying this, Sam, but thank you for letting me help, for not holding my mistakes against me. Samantha looked at him, surprised by the vulnerability. Everyone deserves a second chance, Dylan. That's what this place is for. They worked in silence, the air filled with the low whicker of horses and the shouts of children. Eli raced past, chasing a puppy, his laughter clear and bright. Whisper grazed nearby, her once wobbly legs now steady, her head high. Samantha took a deep breath, feeling the peace settle in her bones. There were still challenges. Money was tight, the work never ended, and every new horse brought its own heartbreak. But the weight of shame and isolation had finally lifted. One evening, after the last child left and the sky blushed purple, Samantha sat on the porch. Eli nestled beside her, Whisper dozing at their feet. Mom, Eli whispered, did you ever think it would be like this? Samantha looked out over the fields, hope swelling in her chest. No, I never did, but I'm glad we didn't give up. And as the moon rose, lighting the new Whisper Haven, Samantha understood that true redemption was never about erasing the past, but about building something better from its pieces. In the end, it was never about winning a race, but about learning how to run together, side by side, towards something brighter than they'd ever imagined. For the first time, Willow Creek felt like home. The seasons rolled on, each day at Whisper Haven settling into its own peaceful rhythm. It was remarkable how quickly the ranch became the living, beating heart of Willow Creek. Where there had once been only the memory of humiliation and suspicion, now laughter, hope, and the steady thrum of healing flowed like the creek that gave the town its name. Whisper, her coat now a soft, dappled gray, and her once limping gait nearly gone, became the gentle matriarch of the sanctuary. Her story traveled far beyond the town lines. People came from neighboring counties just to see the miracle horse who had finished last, but taught everyone what real victory looked like. There was something about her eyes, wise, patient, and kind, that calmed even the most anxious child or battle-scarred veteran. Each morning, Eli would rise early to check on her. He'd find Whisper standing quietly by the fence, waiting for him as if she'd been keeping watch through the night. Together they would make the rounds, filling water buckets, tossing flakes of hay, whispering encouragement to every new arrival. Whisper always walked beside Eli, head lowered so he could scratch behind her ears. For Eli, there was never any doubt. Whisper was family, as real as anyone he'd ever known. Doc Mendez found new purpose in those sunlit fields, his hands steady as he cared for wounded horses and anxious children alike. He was everywhere at once, leading gentle rides, teaching the kids about animal care, telling stories that held both wisdom and humor. Grace took over the gardens, coaxing vegetables from rocky ground, and teaching young volunteers the magic of patience. The ranch seemed to draw people in, folks who needed healing, others simply searching for a place to belong. Samantha felt her world expand day by day. She was no longer just the Darby woman, the one everyone pitied. People sought her out for advice, for friendship, for guidance. Her kitchen became a gathering place. Volunteers crowded the old table for coffee and planning sessions. Kids trailed in for homemade cookies and hugs. For the first time, Samantha didn't feel ashamed to open her door. The Lee family, once just a pair struggling to get by, had grown. It wasn't just Samantha and Eli anymore. It was Grace, Doc, Dylan, and a rotating cast of volunteers and horses. They celebrated birthdays and holidays together, filling the house with warmth and laughter. The scars of the past didn't disappear, but they became softer, easier to carry in the company of friends. One crisp autumn afternoon, as golden leaves drifted across the pastures, Samantha found herself watching Whisper with a group of visiting veterans. The mare moved slowly, letting each man or woman stroke her neck, her presence gentle and unhurried. There was a special power in her patience. She never rushed, never judged. A young man with haunted eyes pressed his face into Whisper's mane and let the tears fall. Whisper just stood, unmoving, until he was ready to step away. Afterwards, Samantha sat beside the veteran beneath the big oak tree. He stared at his hands, voice trembling. "I didn't think I'd ever feel safe again. But she makes it okay for a little while." Samantha nodded, emotion tight in her chest. "She did that for us too. I think animals see the good in us, even when we've forgotten it ourselves." The ranch became a haven not just for people but for animals too. Rescued horses with their own stories of pain and survival found new life at Whisper Haven. Some arrived wild-eyed and terrified, others too broken to stand. Under Whisper's watchful gaze, and with Samantha, Eli, and the community's gentle care, most learned to trust again. A few even found new families, their journeys beginning anew. The town changed too. Old wounds slowly healed. Folks who once kept their distance now joined in, painting fences, planting flowers, donating supplies. At the fall festival, a new banner hung proudly across Main Street. "Welcome to Willow Creek, home of Whisper Haven." Samantha stood beside Eli, hand in hand, heart swelling with pride as the mayor gave a speech about the power of hope and second chances. Grace caught Samantha's eye and grinned. Not bad for a little mayor nobody wanted. Dylan, once the source of Samantha's humiliation, had become a steadfast ally. He still had his rough edges, but he worked the ranch with humility, fixing fences and managing the paperwork, never asking for thanks. He'd become an uncle to Eli, and there were nights when Samantha caught him sitting by Whisper's stall, just talking, letting old regrets drift away on the night air. One evening, Samantha sat on the porch with Grace and Doc, watching Eli and Dylan play tag with a group of kids. The sun dipped low, painting the world in shades of honey and rose. "Did you ever think it would be like this?" Grace asked, her voice soft. Samantha shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. "No, but I always hoped it could be." Doc sipped his coffee, eyes twinkling. "You built something beautiful here. You all did. Whisper started it, but it was your heart, Sam, that kept it going." As darkness fell, Samantha walked out to the barn. She found Whisper lying in her stall, eyes half closed, content. Samantha knelt beside her, stroking her soft gray coat. "Thank you," she whispered, "for saving us, for saving this whole town." Whisper nickered softly, her breath warm against Samantha's cheek. There was no need for words. Everything that mattered was already understood. That night, as Samantha tucked Eli into bed, she listened to the laughter drifting from the kitchen, the sounds of friends and family filling every corner of the house. She thought of the journey that had brought them here, the heartbreak, the struggle, the moments when giving up seemed easier than holding on. She remembered how Eli had begged her not to let Whisper go, how they'd fought together, day after day, for a miracle no one else believed in. Looking out the window, Samantha saw the lights of Whisper Haven glowing against the night. She smiled, knowing that their greatest victory was not in winning the Derby, but in choosing to love, to fight, and to build a family out of broken pieces. Whisper's legacy would live on, not just in the ranch, but in every life she touched. And Willow Creek, once divided by pride and fear, was finally whole, its heart stronger than ever. Years slipped by at Whisper Haven, their passing marked by the steady rhythms of barn chores, laughter on the wind, and the gentle creak of the old porch swing where Samantha often sat to watch the sun set over Willow Creek. The sanctuary thrived, becoming more than anyone could have dreamed. Not just a haven for horses, but for people searching for belonging, healing, and hope. As Samantha watched Eli grow taller, his shoulders broadening, his voice deepening, she thought often about the journey that brought them here. She remembered that first humiliating Derby day, the sting of public laughter, the ache of loneliness, and the stubborn flame that refused to go out inside her. She thought about how many times she'd almost given in to fear, how close she'd come to letting shame dictate her worth. But something always kept her going, sometimes just the quiet trust in Whisper's eyes, sometimes Eli's unwavering belief, sometimes the unexpected kindness of a neighbor. Whisper, now graying around the muzzle, was the beloved matriarch of the sanctuary. Though her steps had slowed, she remained the center of everything, calming anxious foals, nuzzling veterans who still fought battles in their dreams, standing sentinel beside children who whispered their secrets into her mane. Her story had become legend in Willow Creek. School children took field trips to meet her. Tourists stopped by with carrots and apples, and local artists painted her portrait for the county fair. But her real legacy lived in the quiet moments, the way she would stand, patient and gentle with anyone who needed comfort. In her presence, even the most guarded hearts opened. Samantha marveled at how this horse, once thrown away as a joke, had changed so many lives. One autumn evening, Samantha found herself alone with Whisper in the barn. The mare rested in a thick bed of straw, breathing slow and steady, her eyes bright and wise. Samantha sat beside her, the hush of dusk settling like a blanket. "You know," she whispered, stroking Whisper's soft neck, "I used to think worth was something you had to earn, that you had to prove yourself to people who didn't care about you, or win some prize to matter. But you showed me it's not about any of that. It's about showing up again and again, even when it's hard. It's about loving something enough to fight for it. No matter who's laughing, no matter how hopeless it seems." Whisper flicked an ear, as if she understood every word. Samantha smiled, tears pricking her eyes. "I think that's your gift, girl. You made us brave. You reminded us that second chances aren't given. They're made every day, with every small act of courage. And you showed this town that no one is too broken, too lost, or too small to change the world." Not long after, the town gathered for the annual Founders' Day celebration. This time it wasn't Samantha on the stage alone, but the whole crew from Whisper Haven: Eli and Grace, Doc Mendez, Dylan, and a dozen kids who'd found their confidence, their voice, or their first real friend within the sanctuary's fences. Whisper herself stood front and center, festooned with a garland of wildflowers, her coat shining in the afternoon sun. The mayor spoke, but this time the words were not about winners and losers, but about compassion, resilience, and the power of never giving up. When Samantha was asked to say a few words, she hesitated, glancing at Eli, at Whisper, at the sea of faces, so many of them changed by what had begun as a cruel joke. She took a deep breath. "I've learned that true worth isn't what others decide for you. It's the courage to keep loving, to try again, and to give someone a chance when everyone else has turned away. We've all had moments when we felt like Whisper, broken, laughed at, left behind. But this place, this family, is proof that when you refuse to give up on yourself or each other, you can turn heartbreak into hope and shame into something beautiful." Applause thundered, but Samantha's voice dropped as she finished. Her words for Whisper, for Eli, and for anyone still fighting their own battle. Never let shame or doubt tell you who you are. Every act of quiet courage, every small kindness matters. You never know whose life you're changing, or how your own story might inspire someone else. After the ceremony, Samantha and Eli wandered the festival together, Whisper trailing behind, adored by children and adults alike. Everywhere Samantha looked, she saw the ripple effects of one stubborn act of kindness. Families volunteering, young people finding confidence, neighbors reaching out to help those they once ignored. At home that night, as Eli leaned against her shoulder on the porch, he asked, "Mom, do you think she knows what she did for all of us?" Samantha smiled, wrapping her arm around him. "I think she does, honey. I think she knows she was loved, and that she gave that love back tenfold." Grace joined them, bringing hot cider. Doc and Dylan argued good-naturedly in the kitchen over a pie recipe. The house was full of voices, of light, of the unmistakable warmth that comes from building something together out of nothing but faith and grit. As the moon rose over the fields, Samantha reflected on all that had changed. Whisper's journey had given Willow Creek a new story, one about second chances, about letting go of pride, and about the strength found in simple acts of care. The lessons lingered, woven into the fabric of every family and every corner of town. And so, in the years that followed, Whenever someone in Willow Creek faced hardship or doubt, folks would remind each other, remember whisper, remember what's possible when you choose hope, when you believe in second chances, when you let love, not shame, guide you. If you're hearing this story, Samantha would say, remember, kindness has a way of outlasting every humiliation and turning it into hope. If Whisper's journey inspired you, share it. Because the legacy of compassion, like the gentle mare at the heart of Willow Creek, endures, quiet, steady, and strong, long after the race is run. And that, at last, was the truest victory of all.